2 weeks, 3 weeks. I don't know. Time has just disappeared.
Yeah, we had doing a lot of baseball.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
And
That's
work.
cool.
I mean, we've had a lot of things go on in the Husu Preston land. To be honest, so
That's cool.
yeah.
So I'm interested in catching up with all that. I've been crazy busy at work. It's just been insane. I've had like all day meetings and then homework to do in the evening, and it's just been nuts. So I've really sort of got disconnected in the last 2 or 3 weeks. And then yesterday and the day before was supposed to be quieter, and then we had a huge production problem, and I got pulled into that to fix all that crap. So yeah, it's been busy. So yeah, Husu and Preston. What's going on in the world of Husu and Preston?
Are we live?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Well, so Husu and Preston are now on track for a timeline where reservation of visas was not going to be an issue. We're going to get a decision.
Okay.
The government wanted to delay, and the judge came out yesterday and with a scheduling order that said no. I'm going to hear this case, and your motions are due in July. And not only that, and I believe this is the first time this has happened, but granted us discovery.
Okay.
So we're going to find out what is going on,
Cool.
and what has happened, and that assumes that they don't settle, which if I were them, I would. But I would.
Do you think would they be encouraged to settle because you've got discovery? Is that something you think they're not going to want? I mean, what's the difference between FOIA and discovery in terms of what they wouldn't want to reveal?
I think FOIA, you can litigate FOIA, and we actually have put out FOIAs. FOIAs are subject to a number of exceptions that basically they can hide behind a lot of exceptions in FOIAs. And with discovery, if it's related to the case, right, we can ask for requests for production of documents. And so anything having to do with maybe like, the pilot program in December,
right.
Any cable that came out talking about a prioritization scheme,
right.
it's related to our allegations, right?
Yeah.
And what the government's playbook has been in not only the DV world, but in other cases, is they will just submit declarations that are one-sided for them.
Yep.
And what discovery allows for is for us to, cross-examine, for lack of a better word, or test that. So if they say, for instance, we are only scheduling by regional rank order, and we all know that's not true, or we're not prioritizing any other categories. We're going to have a chance to request documents that may, undermine that. We'll also understand a little bit more about, when you did this processing, when you did the pilot program and you said that everyone would be eligible for an interview on submission of a DS-260, what that hasn't really happened, right? That hasn't really been the case. But you never gave us any more information. So we need that information, because our delay claims, we have other claims, but the claims for delay are based on, essentially, you're not operating with a rule of reason.
Right.
And they say they are.
Right.
And on that question, that's where the discovery can go to. We can talk about what exactly what process have you been following? KCC, embassies, etc.
Right. I think the thing in Husu and Preston, if I just put myself in the side of the government, you've got a relatively small number of cases. It's just easier to give you what you want,
Yeah.
Like, why would they send that? We're not talking about reservation. It's going to be difficult to justify their delays. You're going to be picking at all sorts of information. Why wouldn't they, for a sake of 100 cases that they could just schedule or whatever, 150 cases, whatever it is, they could just do that and make the whole thing go away. Why? I mean, why wouldn't they do that?
Well, I think it would make the court happy.
Make you happy too.
It would definitely make our clients happy. And the thing about it is one of the benefits for us filing when we did and where we did was that we wanted to put us on a timeline where we had some flexibility.
Yeah.
And we still have it. If they wanted to come to us, like, we don't have to violate whatever process you say you're doing. If you say you're going by rank number and whatever, we don't need anyone to jump the line.
Right.
Our clients are in the line. They've been in the line. A lot of them have numbers that are extremely low.
Yeah.
And those who are not quote unquote low are all current. We do have some, Egyptian clients that are suffering, but that visa bulletin number is directly related to the fact that Cairo has harmed them. So if I would create a settlement that essentially said, like, well, I mean, that's not cool. But let's wait a month or two because we have the time. Do what you should do. But here's the other thing. And I've told them this, and they know this. You've also given visas to people who aren't even current. So don't tell me you can't take care of my clients.
Right.
So again, I think I got to make, let's see, I have 89 in Husu and I think 25 or so in Preston. I got to make them happy. I got to make them whole. The one good thing, I know we only hear about the bad news, but I mean, this, it does look like there was a change made somewhere in that February, March timeline where they started to do more. And now we have the world essentially current, except for Nepal and Egypt. So again, you're right. I mean, the question is, why keep fighting unless you just can't stomach, confessing a little bit of error. I mean, there were errors made in between October and February at the very least, right? So like,
right.
I don't know.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I suspect your case, they'll probably just make you happy, make you whole. If they don't, you're going to find out a lot of information that will be happy for, that will be happy for me, and that I'll find out more about how this bloody process works, and good for other lawsuits, perhaps. But I am concerned about other lawsuits too. In general, it's very clear. I mean, they've set something like 3,400 2NLs, maybe 3,300. I haven't done the exact numbers, but they've got about 34 or 3,500 2NLs sent out for May interviews, not including Nepal, which I'll come to in a minute. But so they're on track to do the 35,000 plus that I've talked about, right? So I don't see any scenario where they do less than that now, unless they suddenly just stop scheduling, which would be bananas. But there's no reason for them to stop scheduling at this point. So, and as we've talked before, in that sort of world, it becomes hard to win sort of the reservation type lawsuits, which is about, well, they've not done enough. They'll be able to say they've done enough. So I'm glad with how your lawsuit is going. I think it's good for your clients. But the program as a general is in trouble. People have been asking me, I think people are starting to realize, some people realized long ago, obviously, but some other people are starting to realize, well, hang on a minute. They've made everyone current, and here's my number. I'm still not getting an interview. Why not? And I'm saying to people, look, half the people who want visas are not going to get their visas. You got to wake up, people. Yeah. Nobody is safe, right? It doesn't matter. I mean, I'm sick of arguing with people about DS submission date, DQ date, number and everything else. It doesn't freaking matter. It's about what your embassy is prepared to do. Cairo is clearly screwed the people in Egypt. That 13,000 number for Egypt is clearly directly to avoid making people current and avoid giving them their opportunity. It's nonsense. And Nepal, so Nepal issued nearly 300 visas, 2NLs, nearly 3 2NLs in March, 200 in April, and has done nothing for May. Now they may release in the next couple of days some May interviews, but they're also supposed to be releasing some June ones. But by keeping the number at 5,700, they're not moving the VB number for Nepal fast enough to use the capacity at KDU, because the capacity has been set by that 300 number in March and April. And so they're actually now, it's not only the situation where the capacity at an embassy is driving the thing. We've now got a case where the visa bulletin is actually going to slow down and they won't use the available capacity in Nepal. It's nuts.
Yeah.
There's no reason to do that. And of course, they'll probably make Nepal, current or something like that in the last month, but it's too late by then. They need to use the capacity that they have in May and June in that embassy, right?
Yeah. So, it's strange because, again, I one of the benefits of having the Husu case and then our Sydney specific Preston case is that I can look at the world and I have to, because the clients make me and I need to be prepared for that. But when I look at Cairo and I look at OC, for example, right? Why would OC go current? Because to me it looks just like Cairo, right?
Yeah.
And I can't explain it, and it really aggravates my clients from Egypt, and they want an explanation that I cannot provide for them, other than Cairo's being honest and OC is not.
Well, yeah, sort of. So Cairo, the limit on Egypt at 13,000 is specifically about Cairo embassy. If OC was only about Sydney embassy, then yes, OC would be held back. But there's New Zealand, there's all sorts of other, and roughly only a quarter of the available winners are from Australia, right? So in a sense, I'm pleased that they've made, frankly, I'm very pleased that they've made OC current, and same with South America. But it doesn't mean that people are going to get interviews.
No, I mean, it absolutely. I mean, my heart sings for OC because and you're right. That's a good point, because what has happened, and I don't know if the general public is aware of this, but we have had the Suva embassy contact not just our plaintiffs, but other Sydney-based or Sydney-assigned DV applicants and say, hey, if you want to come to Suva, we'll give you an interview. And some of our plaintiffs have taken that offer. It shouldn't be that's happened, but no, I totally understand it. But it does show that, if you're sitting there at OC 2150, thankfully you now have an opportunity, which you would not have had, because just like those in Cairo, you're essentially, being shut away because your embassy is not taking action. And I thought that maybe the Sydney effect would cause that. I'm glad that hasn't happened. I wish it would happen for Cairo as well, because in fact, I'd like to see, there's time, like I said, there's time left for Cairo to maybe pivot away from what it's doing for non-immigrant visa issuances and prioritizing the other IV categories and turn their attention back to the diversity visa applicants. I don't understand it, but that's why we're litigating it. I think, and just a final point, because people say, well, why haven't you fixed it? Right? We paid you and you were supposed to fix it by now. And I think what people need to understand, if you're considering any lawsuit, is, I was supposed to win in like July and August. And that's when I can get yelled at if I don't. Anything before that for me is kind of like icing on the cake, really, right? I didn't. Now I wanted to settle, and I fought my tail off to do it, and I'm still doing that. But really, when you litigate a case, it goes through many lives from the time you file until the time a judge makes a decision. And I think people seem to think like, oh, if I just hire someone, then they get me an interview in the next month, and that's not. It's not just DV litigation; it's any litigation. Like it doesn't happen. Yeah,
I mean, you said it before, and I want to repeat it to people because I get frustrated when not just picking on you, but picking on any lawyer, frankly. If people think that by hiring a lawyer, it guarantees them anything, if you think you're guaranteed anything by hiring a lawyer, you're wrong, right? It's as simple as that. There's no guarantees. So the lawyers will improve your chances. Lawsuits improve your chances. That doesn't guarantee you anything. And you've got to be a bloody grown-up about that. If you don't understand that, then don't get involved in the game. That if you don't want, if you don't want the risk that you'll be engaging a lawyer and they're not going to win for you, then frankly, just don't engage the lawyer and let the government screw you, because that's your other option, right? So, that's the way it is. I get really frustrated about this stuff, I have to say. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not making a bloody penny out of any of the cases. Never have. But I do get frustrated when people won't take responsibility for their own understanding of what they're getting into, and then lash out. I don't know. I'm sure you get it, and I don't know how you handle it, but I get frustrated. So
I mean, I try not to let it bother me too much. I mean, I just think it's really, I try to take accountability. Number one, I mean, I'm probably not communicating as well as I need to, and I assume that maybe either clients or prospective clients know, and just a simple point. I think we actually opened up onboarding for another lawsuit and had people, and then we made the decision that it just was not, I just couldn't give them what I was giving the other clients. It didn't make sense. I didn't want it to impact anything. We had to turn away clients. And, so sometimes as a lawyer too, it's about what can you help? Can you be your best help, right? Can you do things? But none of it is give me money, here's a visa. And I think that, and it's hurtful, I guess, to other people who are considering hiring a lawyer and who understand it, when people come out and bash either you or other people who are trying to be helpful or trying to make people understand what is a very hard system to navigate, whether you have a lawyer or not. Because think about all the things that have to work in the DV pro. You have to get selected. Then you have to get a good regional rank number. And if you have a high number, no lawyer is going to change it. Yeah. Then you have to have the State Department and their components, the KCC and the embassies, to work well together. Yeah. Okay. Then you actually have to give them all the documents that show you're eligible, which people seem to forget about until like a week before the interview, right? And then if you are in a country that may be disfavored or there's something wrong, you have to navigate administrative processing.
Sure.
And then you get a visa.
Yeah.
So exactly. It's a really hard process. And I think for the majority of people understand it, but those that are confused, no, they're not. They're probably, chances are small. They just lash out and attack. And that's just really a microcosm of life, number one. That's fine. But I also think when I get personally attacked or people think that listen, let me just be blunt about it. There is no way I'm making money on these cases. It's just ridiculous. I mean, are you kidding me? The hours I spend, I'm doing this because I literally left my prior job because I could not do DV 2021. And it was a large reason is because I wanted the flexibility to handle my own cases. And this was the first case, the big one that I chose. And people look around and think I'm crazy, like my colleagues, right? They're like, why would you do that? Yeah. That's a hard case, but that's enough about that. I mean, I do think that all the lawyers who are working in this space have their hearts in the right place. Yeah. I'm you're not going to hear me talk badly about someone else who gives their blood, sweat, and tears to help other people get what is a diversity visa. That's an extremely difficult process to navigate. So
yeah, exactly. I agree with you. All right, let's take some questions. Unless you got anything you particularly wanted to address, did you want to take some questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Let's start off with a bit of good news. Estelle is pointing out that Johannesburg has taken some cases. That's good. There's a step in the right direction. I hope they make many more steps, frankly. You were talking about Cairo, by the way, that there is still time. Let's not forget the the 2NLs we see sent next, maybe over the next couple of days, we might see Nepal get some May 2NLs, but most likely in a few days' time, we'll start to see 2NLs for June, right? So June, July, August, September. We've got 4 months left of scheduling. So even if Cairo suddenly woke up today, and bearing in mind they're only up to 13,000 on the VB, Cairo can only do what it can do in 4 months, even if they woke up today. And frankly, there's no sign of them waking up. So is W2 required if I have a 1040? Those two things are synonymous in a sense. The 1040 is a more useful document than the W2 in one way. So 1040 from 2021 that you just filed this year, that's fine. Okay, let's see some questions for okay, so talk about this DS5535. Have you come across this, Jesse? The DS5535, it's the additional background check thing.
So I do a lot of litigation now outside of the diversity visa space where there's been let's say a U.S. citizen spouse who's successfully petitioned for their wife, son, etc., parent, and they get a 5535 because they're from a disfavored country, essentially, and they want to do an extra background check. And I have people, I'm filing delay litigation in cases that have been there for 4 or 5 years. And so I think if you're a DV applicant, you don't have 4 or 5 years, right? I think I would recommend this. If you're sitting there in mid to late July and you're in AP because of the 5535, you have 2 options. Wait and pray, or hire someone who knows what they're doing, who can file a delay lawsuit on your behalf based on the AP, administrative processing, and see if you can trigger a decision. I think some will trigger a favorable and you'll get a visa issued, unless there is security issues, like like you always say, what, nuclear physicists or something, but yeah, it's a freaking awful system. I mean, it really is, because it really provides them an excuse to layer on a delay.
Right, exactly. I think they do move a bit faster for DV cases, but yeah, there's no guarantee. But anyway, the only thing you can do, as Jesse says, is file as quickly as possible the DS5535. If you're in certain countries where you've heard that people are having this form, and the countries are commonly referred to by the government as the T countries, so terrorism countries. They're concerned about Muslim terrorism, right? So largely it's going to be those countries. And there is no harm for you to go onto on the web, find that form, fill it out, and take it to your interview proactively. And in the interview, if they say, well, that's great, but we're going to get you to fill in this extra form, you pull it out at that point. Only if they say it, right? Don't offer it before they ask for it. But if they ask for it, you need to have it ready straight away. And if they send you that after the interview, you need to run back to the embassy like the next day and get it in there and make sure it's being given to them, right? The faster you can do that, the better.
Well, and I think the more information on it, the longer it would take.
Well, you've got to be careful. You've got to be honest on it. For God's sake, be honest on it.
Oh, right? Yeah. I mean, but yeah, it's really, they really are concerned about that travel history, where you've lived. Those are huge. I mean, you got to make sure you put that all down.
Yeah. And often, frankly, I believe, and people have said this before, and I used to sort of negate this point, but I believe that the DV lottery electronic systems are used for gathering of information in general. Think about it. They get 25 million people who fill out a form giving them some personal information, connections, who knows who, right? Then they put out these 553 forms, 5535 forms, and people give more information, right? All that information is going to a database. You think people like me can't figure out who knows who? Of course we bloody can. The programmers are very clever at using data, right? So the database that you're creating on all these people in the countries where data isn't readily available, it's very valuable data to the US government. That's partly why they do it, I believe. All right. Um, jing, 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 jing. Why Morocco is scheduled for even high case numbers? People continue to be confused about this. But I'm not going to get into. I'm not going to get into the whole DQ thing. It is DQ, people. But anyway, whatever. Um, it, the reality is that there are some embassies that are able to bring cases forward faster. Right. It still is about embassy capacity to the greatest extent, except in, I would say, in the case of Nepal, where I see that starting to change. But it's clear that there was a change made, as Jesse referred to earlier, maybe February, but I think perhaps even earlier. This might be the front-loading process, and I'd love to know more information about it. But there have been people who, for example, submitted their DS-260 for the first time in February, who got scheduled for interviews within 2 weeks, right? So it is possible for cases to be processed very quickly. Meanwhile, there are still people who submitted their DS-260s back in May, and they haven't been processed. So what's happening in Morocco, I don't know exactly, but frankly, be happy because Morocco is doing well, right? I'm trying to find a question that's more for you.
No, it's fine. This is my opportunity to learn. I get to learn on camera.
Actually, I get this this Bogota question occasionally. Have you got any clients for Bogota or Cuba?
That is one of our clients. Well, I shouldn't say
okay.
that. I just revealed him, but no, I just recognize the name. No, I mean I think the difficulty in South America is they probably have one or two people maybe assigned to do
right.
just TV, and they have Venezuela to deal with. They're inundated with probably Venezuelan non-immigrant visa applicants or immigrant visa applicants, and they're probably in somewhat capacity constrained. And if there is what we think there is, which is a deprioritization scheme for diversity visa applicants, of course, then you put all that together and you're going to have a Bogota embassy that is willfully blind to those applicants whose numbers are current or processed or whatever. So it doesn't mean that it's over. It's just that you happen to be in a region with, other things going on where DV is not their number one priority.
Yeah, exactly. So not much more we can say about that, Akhil.
Well, I mean, the one thing I'll say is, you're part of my family, so I mean, I have to win for you. So I mean, you've taken the best. I mean, honestly, I'm not saying that joining us is like the best thing, but I mean, you've recognized it. I mean, that's the other thing, right? It's funny because people say, "Why haven't I got an interview yet?" And I tell, if they're a client, what I say is, "Well, listen, when you hired us, you already knew there was a problem. Otherwise, why would you hire me?" So, right? I mean, this is why are we surprised? I mean, this is what we prepared for. And you've prepared by making an obligation from me to you to work as if you're not going to get that interview. That that's the assumption that I work with. I don't assume, because otherwise I wouldn't take your money.
Exactly.
There's no work for me to do.
Yeah, exactly. But frankly, you can't. Well, you can if you're smart. You don't gamble. I mean, if you're smart, you try and weight your side with as much advantage as possible, right? So you can just wait, and on September 30th, you can bawl your eyes out, or you can try and do everything you can do, which is about filing your paperwork, making sure you're prepared for an interview and everything else. If you're lucky enough to get one, making sure you get to your bloody interview if you're lucky enough to get one. But also just be the check on your case and ultimately, frankly, hire a lawyer if you think that's going to improve your chances. So,
yeah, I mean, I think, one of the things with this year, which is different, is when there's no ban on entry, there's no public prioritization scheme. Frankly, there's no COVID. As far as that's limiting all IV immigrant visa processing. This year is about, can the State Department, from October to February, because that's where I see this being the issue. Can the State Department from October to February change the way they process 260s? Number one, surreptitiously, meaning just at the spur of the moment, December 9th, and then really, quote unquote, not front load, but in fact do nothing,
right?
So that there is absolutely very, very small chance that they can take on all the allocated visas.
Right.
Again, that strikes me as something that is an issue for the court.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish there was some sort of punitive damages on these people, because they were told that the tier 4 thing, the tiered 4 prioritization scheme for DV 2021, they were told to take it away. And they were told that it was, by a federal judge, a highly respected federal judge. They were told that it was a bullshit scheme and told to take it away, right? And so what they did was they snuck around and said, well, we can't say there's a priority, but dear embassies, you can decide there's a priority, and you can implement whatever priority you want. Look at what Cara is doing. I mean,
I'm really interested. I mean, I wish I could I don't want to have a debate really, but I mean, when they throw things in declarations, whether it's the Gomez case we're fighting on appeal, or our case when they make, when we talk to them sometimes, when they talk about zero-sum game, right? Here's the situation. I hate that phrase for diversity visa applicants, because Congress by law gives the allocation of visas, right? And then they put a fiscal year deadline on all of them. And so they don't see it as a zero-sum game, meaning that if they give you an interview, they have to take one away, because Congress designed the system so that it worked, so that all the allocated visas could be used.
Right.
They did not make it a zero-sum game, meaning that, because if they did, what they would say is, if you give 55,000 to diversity visas, you need to take 55 away from somewhere else.
Right.
They didn't do that.
No.
They said you're all together.
Right.
So I hate this notion, and then that's one of the things, like, I almost want to litigate the case, because I want to make this argument, like, where is that in the statute? Like, I don't see it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's crazy. Okay, let's talk about DV 2020 for a second. What's the timeline now, Jesse, for getting the appeal through on Gomez?
I spent like 2 days this week. We're filing our response brief next week, I think, and I was working on it this week, so we'll file that. We'll have another set of replies to say who's wrong and where, and then the court set it for argument in September, and so who knows after that when a decision will come down. Right. I do want to. I did think about this the other day as I was writing and going back through Gomez. I think what gets lost sometimes is everyone who is out there in 2020 believes that they will, like, if you didn't get a visa and you're a DV 2020 winner, like, you'll get a visa if we win. And that 9,095 is significant, because there's going to be a lot of people who potentially benefit if we were to win, but don't get an interview or issuance of a visa. Right. Because there's far more visas available like that, even if we win, I mean, the DV 2020 class will have losers in it. Right. And one of the issues, and the biggest issue we're going to have, and we actually invited the government before they took an appeal to this discussion, is how are we going to decide who gets a visa and who doesn't? Are we going to go by regional rank number? Are we going to look at the discrepancies, regional discrepancies and embassy discrepancies? Are new derivatives going to be counted? What about those in AP? So it's going to be, there's a long road to hoe here. I mean, we got a lot of work to do. Yeah, for sure. Let me just, I don't know whether this is widely understood, but do you remember the much discussed system changes back in DV 2020 and 2021 cases? There was a suggestion from the government that they need to spend $500,000
to make system changes on about 5 systems, right? One of the systems that they had to change was SEAC, was the online system for checking both the SEAC database that does the DS260, but also the status thing. And funnily enough, they actually did change SEAC. It went live just a few days ago. What that has meant, let me just put this in here, is that for the first time ever, we're seeing 2013 data in the CX system. We're seeing 2014 data. I had Zarthisius is a very smart guy that's been providing scrape data for a while. We use Frank's data quite often, on Frank's site, and also Save Diversity Visa. They all have the ability to scrape, but the first scrapers were developed around about 2014. I was getting scrape data back in 2014. But I'd never seen 2013 data, so we can now access that. So we have all the years. Arthisius has grabbed all the data we can. We don't have 2012 data. It seems to cut off. I think the electronic database wasn't established there. And there's some weird stuff about the data in 2013, 2014, in that it doesn't show at NVC cases at all. But we do have the issued pattern and refusal pattern for 2013, 2014, which was my year, and so on. I checked my own case number. My own case number doesn't exist in SEAC. It's been deleted because I went adjustment of status route. So my case would have stayed at MVC and therefore doesn't appear anymore. But they've put the data, or they've either put the data back in, but more likely they've made the data work. And what I think this is going to mean, or what I think it could mean, is how we have to wait till midnight on January 1st to get the data, or midnight of December 31st. I don't know whether you know that. There was this weird database thing where the SEAC data for the first few months of the year isn't available to us. And I think it's going to be available to us for DV 2023 right from the beginning, probably in October, maybe even in May. So we'll have to see how that goes, because it'll be interesting to see if we can get that data too. Anyway, just an aside, they clearly are making those system changes that they had talked about. And as I say, at least one of the systems out of the 5 has actually already been modified.
And it was significant that Judge Mehta recognized that they should continue with that investment, so that if and when we win, there's no further delay because they have to update their systems, right? That game is over. You're not going to get more time for that. So I don't want to say that we're going to be here years from now, but we really do have to succeed on appeal. Pray that they don't take an appeal to the Supreme Court, although I'm not. It doesn't mean that we couldn't win there. I think we actually could, but that they would just give up the ghost and say, let's just issue those visas. I think, it's weird, right? Because the cases are consolidated with DV 2021, and there's some novel issues in 2021. I mean, the cases are different.
Right.
So, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what the appellate court does.
Right. Exactly. Okay, so that covers DV 2020 and DV 2021. Somebody's asking about DV 2021, but that's the same thing. So all of those appeals are going to be going on. The system changes are being made. Some have been made. Those system changes were supposed to be released on April 18th, which is what they predicted way back when. Now, that's not going to be a precise date, but clearly by the end of this month, we could reasonably expect that they have the capability to issue visas, but they won't issue visas on DV 2020 and DV 2021 until the appeals are played out. There's maybe a caveat to that, but I won't go into it now. Okay. Let's see. I want to find another Jesse question here. They're all you're used to the questions, Jesse. I mean, it's these sort of questions. Yeah. My case number is this. I didn't receive I didn't see it didn't get the 2NL, didn't get the, your case has been processed. It's very frustrating, but there's just nothing we can say, we don't understand, frankly, why some cases they just continue to process. Whereas other people get, your case is processed or you're now going to be scheduled for interview or whatever. It's crazy.
No, it makes no sense. Yeah, no. I
Yeah.
mean, I think, again, I have my pet theories, but I mean, I think the best answer sometimes is just we don't know yet.
Right, exactly.
I mean, here's the reality though, right? Here's the reality. You're processing it. The two most important numbers, people contact me, say, hey, can you take my case, or will you look at my case? And they say, I'm in processing, and I'm still in processing. I submitted in May 2021. And I say, well, that tells me nothing unless I have your embassy and your number, your regional rank number. And I got to know those things. Because if I don't know those things, I don't know. It could be anything.
Right, exactly. I think there's more to it that you also need to know, you need to know something a little bit about the applicant. I did get, by the way.
Yes.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
So when did they submit their DS-260? What, are they a nuclear rocket scientist? Did they travel extensively in the Middle East doing, chemical experimentation or something?
I will say, and this is, because I've been looking at this, because the government's going to file if we don't get around and settle this, the government's going to file a motion to dismiss in Preston and Husu, April 26th. And so I've been looking, I just want to review, make sure I didn't say anything too, foolish accusations or whatever. And I did go back this week and I posted in Telegram and I looked at the pilot program and their public release, which was simply, if you give us a DS-260 effective immediately, you're eligible for an interview.
Yeah.
There was no, you're a nuclear physicist and we're going to still delay. It was as explicit a statement as they've ever made, meaning X equals Y. And
not just the press release. They also confirmed that in declarations in a couple of the lawsuits.
Yeah.
And all the time I'm sitting here saying, bullshit. It's not just about DS-260 submission. They're clearly going to keep processing. They keep going to do whatever they're going to do. And then there was one declaration that hints at the processing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there are a number of statements that say, DS-260 submitted, you're ready for an interview if you're current, right?
Yeah.
Which is obviously bullshit, right?
And you know what the government, I mean, they're saying this in the Gomez briefing, so it's important that the public knows. They're making this argument. I mean, they have to, because they have to defend their position before a judge. But, and I love this argument because it just doesn't really, it's trying to pull a fast one over the court. They say that there's really no application until the day you show up for your interview.
Right.
So everything that happens before, all the blood, sweat, and tears that you have to go through to actually get to the interview, that doesn't matter. Right. There's no expectation.
Do they put that in writing? Have they put that in writing?
Yeah. No, that's that. No, it's in the.
Oh, brief. Awesome.
Yeah,
so all those cases where they refuse an NIV visa because someone has made an application for immigrant benefits, then filling in a DS-260, and they deny the non-immigrant visa based on the application for the. Yeah. Well, so they're all bullshit then, are they?
Yeah. For life too, by the way, right? For life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, speaking of being for life, did you get an email from a gentleman who has been mistreated?
I did, and I sent it to the best person I know who has a relationship with Joburg. Someone better than me to help him, and he did contact, and that I think we'll see where it goes, but that's
okay. Yeah. So without giving too much, I mean, people have probably wonder what the hell I'm talking about. Without giving too much detail away, because it's a personal case, there was a gentleman who made a mistake immigration-wise in the USA. He actually inadvertently worked. I believe it was inadvertent. He didn't receive any money, but but that's not the point in American law. If you're not entitled to work in America, even if someone doesn't pay you, if you provide services and they are giving you room and board and whatever else, and it's understood they'll take care of you while you're there, like a nanny or something like that. Even that's bad enough. If you're not entitled to do those sort of things, or you overstay a visa, or you abuse the terms of a visa, it can be a very serious thing. So this happened to a gentleman. he was given the option to refuse to withdraw his application for a visa. He did that, got moved out of the country, and then went for his DV interview. In the DV interview, even though he'd avoided when he withdrew his application, they said, if you withdraw your application, you'll avoid a 5-year ban. He said, fair enough, I'll do that. I'll wait my 5 years. Then later, he gets a DV win. He goes for his DV interview. He's honest about all of his stuff, as he has to be honest about his stuff. And they ban him for life, permanent. And so, the cautionary tale, I mean, the lawyers, I'm pleased to hear, will be working on that with him. I'm hoping they'll fix that. But it's an incredibly harsh decision. But the point is, don't screw around with the American government in terms of immigration. Don't lie to them. Don't break any rules, because it will come back and bite you in the ass.
I think in that case, too, I do believe there's a window there for him. Essentially, what the government said to him was, when you came in on this non-immigrant visa, you worked, because he said he worked. But I think the definition of work on a B1, B2 visa for all those tourists and visitors out there, you actually can, if you're an athlete, come in to participate and win prize money or have your expenses paid. So that's the, and again, I'm by no means as good as other people on this issue, which is why I referred him to a good friend of mine who is the best at it. So hopefully he gets what he's looking for. He's already made contact. So yeah.
No, fingers crossed. That would be, but let me know if you hear how that goes.
I will, because that person will definitely let me know.
Yeah, cool. Wonderful. Okay, so this is an interesting question we should just answer. I'm trying to make this clear. Are you guaranteed? Because they made everyone current. It should be happy days, right? No, it's not happy days.
No, I mean, I think
there isn't enough time.
There's not enough time.
There's not enough visas. I mean, there's not enough visas for a start. They've made people current, and it's like saying, yes, we can get this 20 gallons of water into that 5-gallon bucket. No, you can't, right? There is no time. Yeah. And worse than that, there's no time to do it, right?
Well, let's change the system. Let's forget about the visa bulletin and say that they took 100,000 selectees for 50,000 visas, and that was the only thing that was necessary, right? Well, now we know there's twice as many selectees as visas available. Well, that's essentially what we have, right? And so we know that 1 out of every 2 is not going to get one. And that's what you have to understand, that in a perfect system, half or more, I know there's more difficult math, but the back of the napkin math is this. You could be current, and there's going to be a lot of people who are current who are not going to get visas.
Right.
Because that's the way the system is designed at its best.
Yeah, exactly. People then turn that on its head and then say, okay, well, why select 120,000 people for 55,000 visas? Why not instead only select 55,000 people? The problem with that is that because many of those 55,000 people won't actually have been serious about moving to America, they won't apply. And, we would have a continuing, we'd only issue 25,000, maybe 30,000 a year if they only selected 55,000. So they over-select, knowing that some people won't proceed, or they won't be qualified, or they'll have lied on their form or whatever. But this year they over selected, and then they didn't do any work for ages. So
I tell you, what's great though is that it's very difficult to actually pass a regulation. Just for all those who want to know how the American law system works, but they actually pass a regulation where they talk about this, and they say our system is designed to maximize the usage of all the visas.
Right.
And so that's I say that's great. I say that's great because I'm sitting here litigating against what I know to be a delayed, flawed system. But I mean, the design of the system is to over-select, because they know that to get to 55,000, they can't just select 55,000.
Right. But yeah, lovely for a lawyer, a lovely piece
I love
of
it. Yeah.
Oh, really?
I mean,
let's talk about that.
It's tough to get around that language. I mean, they'll try.
Right, exactly. To explain that language.
And I think people, listen, these government and lawyers are not, they're not dumb. I mean, they make really hard arguments to rebut, but at the end of the day, judges oftentimes they'll drown out the arguments of the attorneys and they'll just look at the statute and the regulations. And that's part of our job, is to just really underline those sections and say, hey, I mean, I'm not saying it, they're saying it,
That's interesting. Do you have a clerk when you go to one of these lawsuits in person? Do you have someone sitting you handing you documents and things? Do you have an assistant? Can I be your assistant is what I'm going to ask.
I'll tell you right now. So
I want to be there.
I tell you, I talked to a law school class yesterday, and it was about, being a trial lawyer and an appellate lawyer. And they said, what do you do when you have an argument? Do you bring a binder? Do you do it? And I said, I really, the night before, what I'll try to do is I'll try to talk to my children and have them understand my arguments. And if I can't do it, I'm screwed and I need to prepare more. But usually when I go up there, I usually bring nothing, or I write down 3 things that I have to have. But I'm not this big, because I've done it before where I'll bring up like 3 pages of notes, and you just don't have that time to look at them.
Right.
It just doesn't happen.
Right.
So, especially with the diversity visa stuff. I mean, if I don't know this stuff by now, and I really don't, like, fully, like you do, the ins and outs. But if I don't know the legal arguments by now, they should take my bar license. I mean, I just shouldn't be able to do it. I mean, I don't know. Yeah. But yeah.
Oh, well. All right. 1 or 2 more questions. Frankfurt. How are you getting on with Frankfurt? I know you've got some people there, but are you getting any traction?
Well, I mean, I think people are really upset, and, again, it's like saying the sun's out. But, I think what we have is a situation in Europe that really has created a capacity issue, right? Let's be honest. We have Ukrainians who need to be expedited. They've made that choice. That choice is not something you can really litigate against. You have to kind of go back and say, well, if you had done your job when you should have done it, this crisis would have not had the impact that it will have on a lot of those who are in Warsaw or Frankfurt or trying to get out. I think what people are going to have difficulty with, though, is if they try to, and we've talked about this, I think a lot of people say, well, I'm in Frankfurt, I'll just switch it to London. Now, London's already said, don't even try.
Right.
Or I'll go to Bern, or, I don't know, somewhere else. And, depending on what number you're at, and your ability, if you can transfer and you have a residence in Switzerland, okay. Yeah. If you don't, and you start, telling, that we had just talked about our friend who worked in the United States and got a permanent ban, you got to be careful. I think it's really a problem that I can't sit here and fix.
Right.
And that's the reality.
Oh, man. Oh, well, it must be tough.
But I do think they're not ignoring the diversity. Like there's embassies that are ignoring diversity visa applicants, and there are embassies that are just overcapacitated, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and obviously, as you say, I mean, just obviously what's happening in Ukraine is just mind-blowing and sad and disgusting and horrible in so many ways. And it's going to change Europe for years to come, for probably decades to come. But in the short term, I understand. I mean, if you're sitting in a relatively quiet, you're assigned to an embassy which is relatively quiet, and then all of a sudden that embassy has to take, essentially the refugees and all the overflow. That must be kind of frustrating for the locals. The same sort of thing has happened in other countries, in Europe as well. And there's been a little bit of local sort of protection of their resource stuff going on in terms of, this is our embassy, you keep out. It's unfortunate. We just got to realize that everybody here, wants the same thing. Everyone's trying to get a better life and have their opportunity. It's just, it's a shame. It's that the system is set up in a way that means, there is a sort of competition thing going on. Kind of frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, and it's kind of funny. So I sit here as and this would honestly be the worst spot for me to be ever in. And I hope I'm not in this, and I hope other people aren't. But I had an asylum client, and he said he was fleeing his persecutors in Iraq. And he said, I turned around and I saw a father who had to choose between saving his mother or his child. And, he chose his child. And, and he said, but you know what? He died that day. And I'm not in the same situation, of course. And I tell that story just to say, when I see here and I have clients and, and even the DV community where we know some people are going to lose, it's really hard. And I don't want to sound unsympathetic but it pains us, and we can't walk in your shoes. I understand that. And I know you feel it, but I can't ignore the fact that some people are going to lose out, and they need to know that.
Yeah.
And that's a really hard thing to say. I mean, it just stinks.
Yeah. I mean, exactly. It's tough.
It is.
Okay. All right. So South America, now current, London embassy, a long shot. I mean, so it really is. I'm struggling to find out why people are still sort of not really getting it about the case number thing, but anyway, you're current now, Betty. You're current. You've got a good chance. But it's only a chance. You haven't got a guarantee, right? So
and I think the way I would look at it is, if I'm in London, it depends what London wants to do. I mean, if they see it come up and it's ready and they take it, listen, London is a professional consulate. Like they're no joke. I mean, they're the paradigm. They're the I would think that you have as good a shot as others in the world because.
Yeah, exactly. London has, they seem to have done a better job, right? They're not taking additional cases from elsewhere. That's true. They're running by the book, but as much as they can, I believe, they're trying to do things within, they're trying to make the capacity available. You've got a good chance, I think.
I always say I don't make predictions and then I go and make them. But I would say, like, for you who is current, I would say you'll get a 2-0 in for July or August. I think they'll take you. They're not going to ignore you.
Yep. What Betty should do is email KCC and see if she gets the response that says you are current for interview processing. That would be a very good clue. Or at least the one that says your DS-260 is processed, right? So she sent it in May of 21. So, she needs to check if it's processed. Okay. Let's finish on one happy news thing. Right? Have my interview next week in Desmond. Appreciate the valuable permission. Fingers crossed everything goes well now. Yes, it will be. Everything will be fine for you, Francis.
Just don't have 17 Guinness before you walk into that interview. And it'll be fine.
But if you're going to have Guinness, Dublin is the place to have them.
Yeah, I know. But no, that's, listen, that, and I will say, I mean, we've had, I think, I always get the math wrong because I know I have 89 left. I think we have had 23. If not, no, we had one other one. So we have like 24 people that I've had who've been plaintiffs now get interviews, and many have now been issued visas with their derivatives. And that's a great feeling. I mean, I'm not going to be able to sleep until this is over for all of us. And the Sydney clients, that's a different story. But I will say this: it could have gone the way it was going in February, where they were just ignoring the system and they were not playing ball at all. And the best thing that we can all say is that from February 1st, and it has nothing to do with the lawsuit. I mean, I'm not going to say that. I mean, what I'm saying is they're now at least doing what they should have done months before.
Oh, yeah.
And if they had done that, Simon and I are not on YouTube, right? And we're not having this conversation.
Yeah. And You say not to do the lawsuit. I disagree. I think they would have happily issued 20,000 visas and called it a good job. I think the lawsuits, the threat of lawsuits, etc., by you and others, I think it's made a difference. But it's not going to result. I don't believe it's not going to result in a 55,000, issuance. Curtis is going for the highest number possible, of course, and I presume, I don't know, I haven't discussed it with Curtis, but I presume he's thinking of a reservation lawsuit again. But the government are trying to sort of, trying to fill the bucket reasonably well so that a judge doesn't sort of punish them again with reservation. So
yeah, I mean, like, again, it's a courageous fight. I mean, I think, part of being a litigator is taking the risk that you have taken a big swing, and we and obviously the last couple of years have shown that taking big swings can pay off. But again, there's not without risk. I mean, every lawsuit. I mean, that's the whole thing. If you didn't have an opponent, it'd be easy, right? That goes back to I just give this person X amount of money and they just give me a visa. I mean, like, I can issue visas out of my house, and it just doesn't work that way. And again, it goes back to, you're usually hiring someone because there's a problem, right? We've always used the example of an accountant. I use the example of someone who, if I have something broken in my house, if I, that maybe it's a guarantee he can fix it. Maybe if it's a broken light bulb, but that's not the way lawyers work. I mean, that's not the way it works. I wish I could make everyone's pain go away, but it just doesn't work that way. So we'll see. But
we'll see. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed. And again, let's hope for again.
Thanks for everything you're doing, Jesse. I know people very much appreciate having your wisdom and legal acumen available to them. I think it's amazing what you spend your time doing. I mean, I know why I do it. I know, I'm not sort of working professionally within this area, but you're giving away your professional advice, often for free, and I appreciate that. And I hope people realize what you are doing.
Oh, they do. I mean, I get way too. It's funny because I often get way too much credit than I deserve, and then sometimes I get way too much criticism for things I can't control. But it's part of the deal. It's part of the deal. It's part of the deal. It's fine. It's and again, I'll tell one quick story and then we'll cut out.
Okay.
But the best thing I've done through like Telegram was there was a person who was refused, and they were told her like it's over. And I said, do X, Y, and Z. I don't know if it'll work. It may work. I said, but I've seen it happen. And she went back to the consulate and she wrote this little thing and submitted some documents, and she got her visa. And so, I mean, like for me, again, it wasn't hard. It probably took like 5 minutes of just my brain to say, I think I've seen this before. You can do X, Y, and Z, and maybe it works. And it doesn't mean it works all the time, but I mean, she trusted me enough to take my advice and throw it at the wall, and it worked. And so, again, I mean, that's why I like doing it. I like, I like to see, number one, I mean, a lot of times you got nothing left to lose. And if I can help someone cross the finish line.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's like little ripples. People often ask me, why do it? And I think in your case, so let's say that lady comes to America. Let's say she has a baby in America that becomes the president of the USA and makes some dramatic change and makes the country better. That stems back to your 5 minutes of free advice you gave to that lady. It's like you throw a rock into a pond, the ripples spread out. You never know. They seem to carry on forever. You never know what those ripples on the pond are going to do.
And the other thing too is, there's so much, we live in a world, and it's not like the world is new now and it wasn't that way before. But, we all get to choose every day how we want to live our lives, right? I could sit here and throw angry tweets out there and call people assholes. And sorry, I shouldn't say that. put an X up. You know, I could be mean to people. I could yell at my children, or I could just say, well, I only probably have, I'm 43 years old. I probably have like 40 years maybe, right? Why not use that time to help other people? And really what I like to do is I spend time with my kids, right? And that's how I choose. And you know, again,
Right.
so the haters really can't bother me all too well, you know, because I know that they exist. And
Right.
I wish they would understand that spending time hating is it's just an ugly way to live.
It is. Yeah.
So,
I try and listen to your words every day about that.
no,
I try and be a better person.
I know. I feel like I know this. This goes into like a Dr. Oz session, or I don't
Yeah.
know, like, you know,
Yeah.
but it is because there's so much pain that gets thrown out there on the Telegram. I feel for these people. I'm like, Jesus, why are you so angry? You know,
Yeah.
life's
No,
gonna go on. I mean, it
poisonous.
is.
You're right. All right, Jesse, let's do this again soon. I'm
That's
sorry
right.
we haven't been connected for a couple of weeks. We'll have to do it a different day, a non-baseball day. And, you know, we'll figure it out. All right.
Be good.
Okay.
Thank
Cheers,
you.
buddy. See you. Thanks, everyone, for joining. Please, by the way, everyone, if you've posted questions that I couldn't get to in this conversation, please go to my blog, BritSimonSays.com, and post those questions, and I will answer them there, I promise. Okay, so you can put your question there. So there's going to be a bunch of questions there. That's fine. I'll work through them one by one. Just post them one time, though. Don't repeat the question 58 times. Okay? Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining. Bye-bye. Cheers now. Bye-bye.